Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to our last indie comic interview of the night. It is your Capes Crusader, Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our brand new host. Or excuse me, I'm the host. Our brand new guest. Switching roles here. Harry Crowe, welcome to the stream. How are you doing? We are going to be breaking down Stud and the Bloodblade, the collected edition, which is on pre-order until the end of tonight.
Yes, well, thanks for having me, Cody. Super excited to be here, and looking forward to talking about Stud.
So you have created such a really insane, like, sci-fi, fantasy, action, adventure, just brutal gore, love fest. It was insane. There was just such a unique combination of everything in between. I never judge a book by its cover, but I thought, like, I was gonna, have that, like, classic, like, alpha Chad like type of vibe with Stud, but he ended up being a lot more of like a likable character, you know what I mean? Because I looked at the muscles, I was like, okay, like, he's swole, I wonder what we're gonna get. But this guy was rather intelligent. He was passionate. We see him get really confused and conflicted about what to do at one point in issue 1, which we'll break into a little bit more. It was phenomenal. So what drove you into creating Stud and the Bloodblade? What drove you here?
Stud specifically started sort of as inspired by He-Man, which is probably of no surprise. But I grew up watching He-Man, but more specifically playing with the figures. And this was original He-Man back in 84, 83 or whatever. And the one thing that struck me about He-Man was if you read the little mini comics that came with the figures, it was just like a different world. It was a little darker. It was, almost more of that, more straight up fantasy. It didn't have originally the Prince Adam element to it. He was just like a barbarian guy, and it felt like more of a post-apocalyptic kind of world. And, I guess I was always kind of drawn to that. I mean, I loved the cartoon too as a kid, of course. But, and so I guess, Stud is sort of almost marrying these two ideas of like kind of brutal fantasy. I mean, and I love Conan. I love like the full on, barbarian hacking people up with, swords and stuff. But, I also love 80s cartoons and stuff. And, this was just kind of marrying those two ideas together, and it was sort of exploring the idea, in serialized entertainment of any kind, there's an element where the good guy is fighting the same bad guy over and over and over again. And so Stud sort of plays with that idea of like, what would it be like if the hero sort of gets frustrated by this cyclical nature of like, oh, you won in this episode, in this issue, whatever, but then you're fighting the same guy again. And so Stud is essentially looking for a way to burst out of that repetitious cycle. And so he gets his sword, or it's not even a sword, it's a Bloodblade. It's a mix of a sword and an axe, just a giant over the top like Soul Calibur sort of ridiculous weapon. And he tries to achieve a lasting success, and part of doing that is to actually kill the bad guys, which sounds more weird than it is to say, oh, it's He-Man, but he kills people. So the idea anyway sort of came out of originally like an 8-page parody of those mini comics that came with the figures. And I was in a Comics Experience workshop at the time, which is an online workshop where you can submit scripts and have them critiqued. And I did this 8-page sort of parody, and people liked it, but they were sort of like they wanted more, and they also just thought it was, I guess technically it was supposed to be a one-shot, like kind of ended it on sort of a cliffhanger. It wasn't, but again, it was sort of supposed to evoke this mini comic idea. So that was, sort of like Star Wars starting with episode 4 originally, and now we're where we are with Star Wars, but just like the episodic nature of it was just part of the idea. And so I blew the story out more from those 8 pages, made it a full 22 pages, and then just took it into a mini series. I mean, there was a point where I thought about making it into an ongoing series, but I don't know if anybody really does ongoing series anymore. I mean, independent creators to do the mini series.
Bloodblade was a really interesting concept. I really liked how he had to keep killing his enemies, or at the end of the day, he was going to transform back into Gary, who was, for lack of better words, a child that he ended up accidentally killing, or had a hand in killing. And I just thought it was awesome, how that happened. What drove you to that type of weapon? What in your mind when you were constructing this weapon, what made you conceive of that?
Well, again, it was, I guess, riffing on He-Man and the Prince Adam He-Man vibe, but doing it in reverse. And so this isn't, I mean, Prince Adam in the original show anyways was a pretty buff guy too. But in reality, he's supposed to be sort of the Clark Kent Superman dynamic, or more like Billy Batson, Captain Marvel. But this just kind of turned that on its head. It's not like a weak person who becomes strong. It's actually a strong person who becomes weak. And so he's, it's kind of tackling, toxic masculinity ideas too, that, I'm a man, I'm big and buff, I would hate to, and I'm a hero and I have this heroic legacy, is how Stud feels. So he doesn't want to turn into a scared little weakling named Gary. So he's driven to do it. And, obviously, I think Stud is like a hyper-violent, anti-violent story. I mean, you have to read the whole thing maybe to get that. And there's a touch of maybe having your cake and eating it too, where, action and violence is compelling or fun to see in media, in a comic book, in a movie maybe, but obviously it's a devastating thing to have in real life. And so Stud, as cartoonish as it is sort of trying to address that. And I wanted to show that, it has this over-the-top violence where he needs to kill people to sustain his heroic, stature. But, at the same time, the violence has real repercussions. You see the bad guys who are left from the initial sort of encounter with Stud, that they're devastated by it. They had their friends killed, so they're upset with Stud. And I think ultimately, violence is cyclical. You can never really solve problems with violence because violence begets violence. And so if you hurt somebody, some relative of them or someone on their side is going to come back around and hurt you. And so it's really not a good thing to do, to hurt people to achieve your goals.
And so I want to dive into this, but I think I'm going to save some of the questions for when we go over the issue, because I think it'd make a little bit more sense to ask it while we're looking at it. That'd be the best way to kind of break it down. So right now you're looking at packing 3 of these issues into one collector's edition. This is what the pre-order is for. I'm going to be throwing this up in the link right now. This is from CEX. So tell us a little bit about your relationship with them and what you're looking to do. It looks like you're only offering 50 copies of this ultra rare limited edition. We previously offered. My apologies.
Oh, no worry. It is a little confusing. There's a bounty of Stud material to be had in the May orders through Diamond and Lunar. We're doing the collected edition of Stud, which it had come out as 3 double-sized issues starting in August of last year, and the last issue came out in December. And what we're doing now is collecting them all into one trade paperback, so you can get the whole thing. In reality, or not reality, but originally we had conceived and created the book as a 5-issue miniseries, and actually the 5th issue was a double-sized spectacular, giant-sized spectacular, because I used to just love, giant-sized comics and wanted to go out on a bang. There's this conventional wisdom in comics that there's this drop-off in sales after each issue and a huge drop-off after issue 1 and subsequent drop-offs. So my thought, which maybe is completely counterintuitive and was not a good idea, but I would make the last issue a jumbo-sized issue, because then you'd be like, oh, hey, well, I need to get the last issue because it's jumbo-sized. Again, maybe not really a smart thing to do, but ultimately, though, the CEX packaged the first 2 issues together into the double-sized debut, issues 3 and 4 into the super-sized sequel, and then the 5th issue became the 3rd issue, which was already double-sized, and so it remained a giant-sized spectacular. But we released this. I don't know if it not exactly the height of the pandemic, but things were not great for international shipping.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. So we had delays on every issue, and like the books were sitting in a ship off the coast of Long Beach here in California for like a month or something. So everything got pretty delayed. I think it was a little challenging for readers to sort of stick with the script, because they're like, well, when is the next issue coming out? And we didn't honestly know.
Yeah.
So it's nice now to provide the complete story in one package. You just get all the issues at once. You don't have to worry about when the next issue is coming. So that is in pre-orders, and like you said, the Diamond initial orders and today. Then we're also distributed through Lunar, and that initial Lunar cutoff is next week, and then they have a final order cutoff in June 12th. There's a lot of cutoffs. Diamond didn't give us a final order cutoff. If you know any stuff about that, it's kind of hard to get final order cutoffs, especially as a new creator. And Stud is actually the first book released by CEX, so the whole thing was very new. And
that's pretty cool, though.
Oh,
how's that feel cool to be one of the first creators?
Awesome. It feels phenomenal. It's a huge honor. The guys at CEX are awesome. I mean, Andy Schmidt is the president of it, the publisher. He's a Marvel IDW veteran. He writes great stuff himself. Paul Aller is the managing editor, and I think he's actually editorial director now. Sorry, Paul. But he's been a huge supporter of Stud. He gave one of the first, he might have even been the first critique of the Stud script in this workshop. So CEX Publishing is Comics Experience Publishing, and then Comics Experience is this online workshop. So they're technically separate, but they're like sister entities or whatever.
Like the same universe.
Yes, exactly.
So we're looking at 144 pages though for just $19.99. That is a pretty awesome price. I mean, did you get to dictate like what price you were looking for, or did they have more of a hand in that?
I had no involvement with the price whatsoever. I trust them. That does seem like a nice price for sure.
Yeah.
So that's easy. Easy on the wallet. You get a ton of action. I think the story itself is sort of dense in a good way. There's a lot to take in, a lot to chew over, and I think there's a lot of good stuff in it, and people will get more than $19.99 worth of story out of it. We also have a really awesome, just real quick, there's this really cool variant that I was honored to be a part of. It's this metal cover variant of the first issue of the trade, so it's 2 issues total, so that's 44 pages. The cover is made out of metal. It's really cool. We didn't print very many of them, but if you like really strange, unique issues, collector's items, that is also available, for pre-order. And it's the Bloodblade, so I think a metal cover is quite appropriate.
Yeah. And it looks like, I think it said there was only 50 available, correct?
I believe so.
And then 25 through Lunar. So I also noticed as we scroll down too, there's another the Stud and the Bloodblade issue 1 signature series limited to 50. So that's pretty nice too. What was the price tag on that one? Because I don't think I didn't see one.
I believe it is that might be $19.99 or $16.99. I forget. But the idea is that it's sort of like bringing the convention experience to you. You don't have to go pay for overpriced nachos and stand in line. You just can get a fancy cover comes pre-signed by myself and the artist Jed Dougherty, who's a co-creator of Stud as well. So yeah, you can get our
And it's a
signature.
variant cover too, it looks like.
Yes, it's kind of a blackout cover of the first issue, really cool, and then you can kind of see the villain, Witchtress, kind of in the background, looming in the shadows. So yeah, I mean, CX is really beautiful stuff.
The way I was looking at my screen, I didn't even notice it until I looked over because the contrast of the black. But yeah,
Exactly.
I see that now. That's awesome. And
I know it's creepy.
how we see Stud and then Gary both as one holding the Bloodblade, pretty awesome as well.
Yes. Oh, Jed is a total visionary. He was absolute thrilled to work with. He, elevated all of the writing I did. Just we really clicked well, and I think made a great comic. And yeah, we just really we're on the same page in a lot of ways. I think I don't know if you read like 2000 AD, that sort of stuff, like the UK, like the sci-fi stuff, like from where Judge Dredd came from, and we kind of have similar sensibilities in that way. So I think we got on well and really had good synergy going with the comic.
Anytime you can have that, I think what you're able to produce, the end result is just phenomenal because you really can't replicate it. Because that synergy and that organic relationship is just it can really make or break a book. And I think really the combination of the two really made this book like a really awesome experience.
Thank you so much for saying that.
So let's go ahead. You said you were interested in it. Let's go ahead and pull up issue 1 and kind of start breaking it down. All right, here we go. So we have the issue 1 pulled up, and let's go ahead and start breaking it down. So this is the double-sized debut of Stud and the Bloodblade. So a nice little cover right here. We have Stud and Gary. And
we do, and that's Witchtress. Yeah, she's sort of the main villain in the back. Astro is the astronaut who crash lands on the planet Ouroboros, which is where Stud lives. If you go back up just real briefly in the back left, you can see Omega Alpha, which is the name of the sun, which is a sun and a black hole. That's part of the mythology of Ouroboros. Ouroboros is, the mythological idea of the snake eating its tail, the idea of infinity. And so in Ouroboros, the mythology is that, once Omega Alpha finishes the dance between a black hole and a sun, the loop, the giant cosmic snake that gave birth to existence as we know it, will burst out of the black hole and reclaim his tail, which is located at the bottom of the ocean, the Eidolon Sea, which is where all creation, all of life came from on Ouroboros. And anyways, so Astro is from ruined Earth, who's the survivors of sort of the apocalyptic war are taken to space to find a new planet because Earth is completely devastated, and so they end up going through this black hole, crash landing on Ouroboros, and meeting all the monsters and Stud who live there. And Jed did a great job with the cover. It's kind of a classic encapsulating the hero, and so you got the two sides of Stud. You got Stud and Gary, you got Astro, you got Witchtress, and then you got Witchtress's cronies there in the lower left. We got Sassy Q is a female Sasquatch. We got Roach Coach, he's a cockroach gym teacher guy. We got Lava Voom, who is a lava warrior. Roswell is like a gray alien guy, classic alien. And we got Cano Peaches, who's literally a can of peaches.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty humorous.
Thank you. Yeah, so again, the He-Man vibe, I always, love just the crazy names in He-Man. Mecha Neck, Snout Spout, just kind of ridiculous names. So playing on that, with like Lava Boom being like Lava Boom and etc. Cano Peaches, Man at Arms, Cano Peaches. That one was maybe a bit of a stretch, but I wanted to get a can of peaches in there.
Yeah. What was the reasoning for that? You just like peaches that much?
Well, I believe that there's a sort of a post-apocalyptic connection to cans of peaches, that they're like in the ruins of civilization. The scavengers are looking for any way to survive, and so they encounter a lot of canned goods. And in some cases, there are peaches in there.
So right here is what I assume to be another variant cover as well.
Yes, that's a variant from Robert Atkins. He does a lot of G.I. Joe comics, and yeah, he's phenomenal. And kudos to Andy at CEX. He had the connection there, so he set that up. But yeah, so we had awesome. variants for all 3 issues. So yeah, very fortunate there.
And right here's the creative team involved.
Yes. Yeah, we had Mark Dale did the first issue, and then DeForest Fox, you can call him Dave, he took over, and Anthony Rella is a phenomenal letterer. He did a great comic called Seis Cuerdas. He's a writer also, so if you ever get a chance to check that out, from Source Point Press. Charles McStravick, a friend of mine, he created the logo, and he kind of did some layout work and helped with sort of making sure the pages were to spec and all that stuff. And Mark Seymour is a veteran comic creator, writer. He had a kind of definitive run on Power Pack, and he was in the CEX workshop, so he gave me great notes on that.
We have Elena saying the artwork is amazing as well.
Thank you, Elena. Yeah, Jed is a great artist. Robert Atkins was a great artist to have contribute to the cover, so yeah, thrilled about that. Could read the indicia there no, I'm just kidding. I don't need to linger on the fine print. But yeah, so we come into Ouroboros here on the first page, and sure enough, a spaceship has crash landed on this sort of hellish landscape of volcanoes, and again you can see the Omega Alpha there, the black hole, and the sun, and yeah, so the spaceship has crashed. There's only one survivor, and his name is Astro, and he's like, what is this place? But
you can kind of see the dead bodies right here.
Yes,
as well.
It was a rough landing, for sure.
And then right here is the introduction to the cronies as well.
Yep. Yeah. So there's your first really good look at them, and oh yeah, Rockstar too is like an '80s rocker made out of rocks and minerals, and so I mean, I like puns. What can I tell you? But yeah. So you got all the guys from the cover there, and Jed just knocked it out of the park with them, and Cano Peaches has got his sinister sort of Tin Man look going on, almost like a jack-o'-lantern too. So yeah, he's gorgeous. And Roach Coach, speaks in sports aphorisms all the time. He's like a coach, so it's a fun way to write him.
And then this is them kind of trying to investigate what they heard.
Yes, so the spaceship has crashed. Their boss, Witchtress, has told them that the Demon King, who is this powerful entity, is inside the ship. So she has sent them to go collect the Demon King to bring him onto the team so that she can destroy Stud, basically. But in the background, you'll notice someone is watching the Watchers. And so we'll find out more about him shortly. But yeah, they're in the background. So they're rushing off to go confront Astro. And Astro is, just taking it in. He's like, oh, well, at least I can breathe on this planet.
Yeah, surviving a horrific crash as well.
Right. But then we get good old Sassy Q, the female Sasquatch, voluptuous as well. Most of Jed's women are voluptuous, which makes for a good comic. And so she kind of begins the assault on Astro. He tries to get away, but boom, Roach Coach with his, Rockstar, being a rock sort of elemental creature, can just rise out of the rocks, and he grabs his foot and says, hold up, my dude.
He's looking like he's in some trouble because he's caught and surrounded.
Oh yeah, it could be the end. Could be the end for Astro. So they come in to get the truth out of him. Where is the Demon King? Astro doesn't have any idea what the Demon King is. So they send in Roswell with his ultra probe to get to the truth of the matter. Looks like it's curtains for Astro, but slice.
Yeah, we see him effectively chopped in half. Yeah.
Yes, and unnecessary roughness. That is a classic Roach Coach sports callback, and Jed just did a phenomenal job showing the innards of Roswell there. You can see sort of the alien internal organs and whatever else is inside of an alien. But you'll notice that there's only dust that has come out of Roswell, and that will play in later, once a few more pages. We'll learn a little more about the curse of the Bloodblade.
Okay.
And so, boom, he's been sliced in half. Then we get the big reveal and the title page. And there is our hero, the ginger giant stud, protector of Ouroboros.
And I love it. My roughness is most necessary.
Yes, nice little response to Roach Coach's claim. And there again is those juicy alien innards. And then Stud just sets about just annihilating the bad guys. So he takes out,
utterly just slicing heads in half. It's pretty brutal. So did you always intend for it to kind of be this brutal and graphic, or is that something where your artist kind of just took the idea and ran with it?
I mean, it was always supposed to be like intense. I mean, I think I had him cutting his head off. I think the action itself was always brutal. I mean, Jed does a phenomenal job of visualizing brutal violence. I mean, it was always brutal, and I think that was sort of I don't know if charm is the right word, but it was like, oh, it's this He-Man, like He-Man in the cartoon anyway, not the new one, the original one. He's got a sword. I don't know if I've ever seen him cut anything with the sword. Sometimes he might shoot an energy blast out of it, or sort of like knock something.
He most certainly does not chop an alien in half with it, though.
No, he doesn't. So this is giving. I don't know if it's giving anybody what they want, but it's giving me what I want. Is just like, instead of this back and forth battle of, oh, you won this time, it's just like, no, Stud is just ending it. Takes out Rockstar. Protects. I mean, his goal is to protect, but then he's also like, I'm going to just, destroy Lava Voom with a vicious backhand, like Ivan Lendl, almost splat. And then Can of Peaches, boom, cuts him right in half. But you see, he goes, he's nothing but peaches. So he's been missing something in this assault. He's not really getting what he wants. You can see, there's Sassy Q sort of looming in the background. Setting up the big page turn, and then boom, there you go. So finally, blood. That should buy me a few hours, says Stud, or thinks Stud. And so what you'll eventually learn, I guess we'll get to that point in the review of the issue here, but so the Bloodblade is literally, cursed to need blood. And so Stud here with this strike, so he got Roswell, who's full of dust. You got Rockstar, who's just rocks. Lava Boom is lava. Can of Peaches is just peaches. But now he got some blood, so he's going to stay Stud for a bit longer. Roach Coach, time to punt. Another fun sport word, and then another one in the very next panel. A game of inches as he blocks Stud with his mega clipboard. And then so Roach Coach does get away, but then Stud and Astro are having a little sort of post-battle, like, wow, that was intense. And
so they're called the collective unconscious?
Well, the collective of unconscious is kind of playing on the idea that it's explained in the next page too, where it's, the citizens of Ouroboros all kind of have this mythic kind of almost, I don't know, stereotypical quality of, like, Astro's thinking about it. They were asking him about a demon king, and he sees a Sasquatch, and he sees an alien, and he's from Earth, so he's like, these are concepts that always came up, in my society.
Yeah.
So he's like, so it's sort of the collective unconscious of humans, of humanity, and now he's encountering those as literal beings on this planet. So he's.
I really like Dillo too. What was your inspiration for having him ride a humongous armadillo?
I mean, I guess it was I think armadillos look cool, and Jed did another just beautiful job realizing that armadillo, and B, like I guess thinking of He-Man riding a battle cat. I'm like, well, if you're gonna ride a creature, I think an armadillo could be more useful. Sort of like riding a tank. He's got armor. So yeah, and just kind of like armadillos too. I think they look cool, and strangely, or maybe not strangely, that has seemed to resonate with readers. There's been a strong Dillo contingent who enjoy seeing a giant armadillo.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so awesome. So this is when we find out we're heading back where time itself loops back around. And this is when things kind of like start to get crazy. We see them off having a little bit moment of bonding, and we get a little bit of a backstory for Astro.
So yeah, we do. Here's where we learn that he's from a devastated Earth, and his city has been, his planet has been essentially destroyed, or is soon to be completely destroyed. And so he's sort of team of people who are going out to scout for a new planet. And so Stud's like, oh, well, I can take you to our capital, the city Prime, which is this bubble city on a hill, very sci-fi fun stuff. But then Astro's like, oh yeah, Prime sounds great. And then Stud's like, yeah, it is a great city, although there are some who would stop at nothing to destroy the city. And then we jump to Mightiest to show one of these people who would like to destroy Prime and all that Stud holds dear. So she's appearing sort of in that magical holographic kind of way. She's not really there, but she's appearing to Roach Coach as he's sort of tidying up the devastation that Stud has left in his wake.
I really like the lettering too, right here, the fool and so fine, how you see those words really amplified.
Yeah, Anthony, it was really visionary with lettering. He does throughout the whole series. There's one thing in the last issue that obviously I won't get into right now, but just like I love it so much, and it was like totally his vision, and really just a joy to work with, and seeing his work again just amplified what the script had. And
we have Dr. Hino 419 saying hello in chat over on YouTube. How are you doing tonight, Dr. Hino? What's your thoughts on Stud and the Bloodblade? I'm loving just the graphics, just how everything was detailed. Here we see Roach Coach gathering up all his dead friends and comrades. A really interesting scene right here. And then we're kind of seeing her just saying, go get that or I'm going to kill you myself. And he's kind of losing it.
Yeah, I mean, Roach Coach, he's a team player, and it's been devastating to see his team get basically annihilated. And Mightiest is sort of like, I don't care that your friends got killed. So Roach Coach is upset, and I think Jed just did again a phenomenal job of capturing the sort of the internal turmoil of Roach Coach, just the way he's sort of like touching his mouth or his mandibles or whatever you call that part of an insect, and then so Mightiest disappears, but then Roach Coach hears something off in the distance, and he realizes that Lava Boom has actually survived the assault by
Not looking too hot though.
No, she's been splatted. So she's a bit of a puddle. But yeah, so they kind of hatch a strategy to they're like, they don't want to do what Mightiest wants them to do. They want to go kill Stud, basically. They don't want to go find the Demon King because they're angry at Stud for killing their friends. And so they kind of decide to team up and take the fight to Stud. And I love the way the puddle of Lava Boom looks.
Yeah, with the face.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for a quarterback sneak. So we're going to be seeing the deceased can of peaches being used as a different type of can this time around.
Oh, I should have done that. It's actually Rockstar who's used.
Was it?
But yeah, damn.
Oh,
Now
I knew
feel like
it was the dead. I
back
knew
and
it was one of the
redo
dead
it.
bodies. I knew.
But now you say, I mean, it can. It can. I believe it. That'll be in the next special edition.
So now we're seeing them on the road to Prime.
Yes. And just real quick, on this, if you stay on that area, I love on the right side there on the wall, like to the right of the inn, Jed just has like sort of this giant hieroglyphic kind of detail on the wall. It's super subtle. But yeah, I mean, and he just really captured the post-apocalyptic, sort of not post-apocalyptic, but ruined antiquity kind of vibe of Stud, here in the Badlands. And this idea that, this is sort of this almost a graveyard of civilizations throughout all of history, all like repeating universes, even not even a single time stream. And that was something Jed just brought to it kind of on his own. He did a lot of
did a very beautiful job of it too.
Yeah.
And everyone loves Stud. We see him entering this tavern, and everyone's happy to greet him and say hello to him.
He is the hero of the land, and so everyone's glad to see him, and they offer him food and drink for free, and and Stud's like, oh, thank you, but I'm really just looking to give room for my friend here. He's new in town. I'm not going to stick around. I got to get back out there. Monsters are most active at night. As the hero, I got to get out there. But then secretly, you can see him thinking to himself, that's right, hero, blame the monsters. So you get an idea that there's something more going on that he's not revealing to anyone because he's sort of trying to protect his own reputation. But Astro is like, oh yeah, I know about monsters. And we get a little flashback to Astro's time and space, and you see that his team had crash landed on an asteroid. Not crash landed, I'm sorry. They landed purposely on an asteroid so that they could mine it for fuel, because this is sort of this unknown duration of time that they're going to be searching for a new planet. So they equipped the vehicle to be able to process ore on an asteroid. But when they got to the asteroid, there was some sort of unknown species of creature on the asteroid, and it attacked them and killed some of their people and put one of their guys in a coma. So then Astro's like, so we encountered this monster, and it really screwed my team and just destroyed us. And now I'm in this bar, and it's like full of monsters. But then Stud's like, oh, these guys aren't monsters. They're good people, but they look like that. And Astro is sort of like feels bad because he's like, I'm just like where I'm from, people don't look like that. So Stud's like, look, I will hang out with you, and I'll show you that this is a good place. These are good people. And I'll stay for one drink, and we'll just chill. And so
real quick, we have Dr. Hino saying, for you, keep on making this stuff long-term investment. He sees with this, and he prays for your success.
Thank you so much.
Oblivia over on Twitch saying the space monsters look dope as fuck. Yes,
I think
yes, all these monsters look very incredible and detailed. I think your artist has really killed it with like the designing and the paneling as well.
Yes. Oh my God. No, Jed's phenomenal. I mean, he's got some other books out too. Savage Hearts through Dark Horse, and Aubrey Sitterson is the writer of that one. That's out right now. He's working on. I probably can't talk about it because I don't think it's properly announced yet. But he's got some other stuff cooking. But yeah, he's a great artist for sure.
And then we're kind of just seeing a little bit more of Stud telling his tales of heroic feats.
Yes, and so again, the idea is he's like the hero of the planet, so everyone kind of has a story about the time he came and and saved them. So you get him, he's like sitting there and it's not even then. But one detail is that he's not telling the stories. He's kind of bashful about. He doesn't want to.
Okay,
He's humble,
gotcha.
so he doesn't want to like. Oh, and this time I fucking did all this great stuff. Instead, everyone else is like, oh my god, this guy like came. And so if you look at all those little panels there at the top, you can see the things he did. So he, fought a kraken monster in the ocean and saved these fishermen. He rescued a kitten from a tree that was being attacked by a harpy. And you can see at the bottom there's like a grandma and a little girl. And he rescued a wedding of a horse people. Just all these fun things, and Jed really kind of brought a lot to those in terms of the visualization. And you can see here in this panel that Stud's sort of like, oh, thank you. He's a little embarrassed. Everyone's telling his tales, but Astro's like, wow, this guy is like super cool.
Yeah.
He's like a stud. He's like a hero. So, and everyone's drinking and having fun, and so then we go later still. On the next page, and Jed, great cartoonist in the way that he's got the little like alcohol bubbles around their heads here, and the bird is standing on top of Astro.
Drunk.
Just really, really great stuff. The bird is drunk too, which I'm sure that is its own mini series that we can spin out, the drunk bird. But and then and Stud's like, oh, I gotta get going, and Astro's like, these people love you, like just accept their love. You're like a great guy, you're a hero, but Stud's like, oh, I'm not that great. I hope I really can deserve their acclaim. And then Astro's just like, you gotta be kidding me. You're like the one thing holding this planet from going full on inferno. And so I was like, oh, speaking of that, I gotta get going. I gotta go do more hero stuff. And then Astro is just like, hold up, man. Like, I should have been dead several times today, but I'm not. And I met you, and you're this bona fide hero. And let's celebrate the fact that I'm alive and you're awesome. And you can see there's a little tender holding of the hand there on the table. And then we jump to much later that night, and Stud and Astro are in bed together. They look blissful, all is well. But then the Bloodblade starts to emit this eerie red glow, and there's a weird face inside of the blade, and there's a transformation that's happening with a whoosh, classic whoosh noise sound effect. And then here comes Roach Coach. Are you ready for some payback? With the music notes calling out to the Monday Night Football.
Okay, yeah.
Team.
And I see the design now. I don't know why, for whatever reason, I thought it was a can.
Well,
but
you're
using
right,
the head was
it
so much
should have
brutaler.
Well, thank you for saying that. But it's a can, damn it. It's staring me right in the face. But so then, so they're facing this assault by these monsters. Stud is not there. Astro's like, Stud! But then he's like, oh, shit, Stud's not there anymore. He's like, who are you? But clearly this scared little weakling is not going to help him. So Astro's just like, well, fuck it, then I am going to, fight these guys myself. And so he grabs the Bloodblade and confronts, the monsters. And heave-ho, Roach Coach throws the liquefied lava boom at Astro, and Astro handles it pretty well. Just, another great backhanded slap to out the window. And so, it looks like Astro might be able to handle himself. But then he comes up against Roach Coach, who has 4 arms, which is kind of a huge advantage in hand-to-hand combat. So he's able to just take the Bloodblade, hold Astro's arms, and have 1 arm left to punch him in the face. And then, boom, gives him a pretty nasty jab with the old Bloodblade. And
so why kill him? Why have him die in this scene?
Well, because it's a brutal world, and Stud had to suffer Stud made a bad decision here. He, as we'll find out shortly, he should not have lingered. His internal sense was like, I really do need to get out there and be a hero and fight bad guys, but he wanted to relax. He wanted to have some beers. He wanted to make sweet, sweet love. And that's not always an option for the hero. And so you see Astro just getting killed by the Bloodblade, and the Bloodblade actually starts to drink Astro's blood, which, as you will remember earlier, when Stud killed Sassy Q, he was quite thrilled to get that blood, and now you can see exactly what the value of the blood is. The blade drinks the blood, and suddenly Stud is back, and he comes out and he punches Roach Coach's head right off. Roach Coach with one last little primo sports reference, so he's gone, and then Stud is sort of left to deal with the aftermath of his actions. This guy he really likes is now dying because Stud, as he explains in this scene, the Bloodblade is cursed. It needed blood in order. If it doesn't get enough blood, Stud turns into Gary, and that is what had happened, because instead of going out and being, fighting monsters, slaying monsters endlessly, he wanted to take time to indulge and enjoy life, and that's not always the hero's option. And so he's dealing with that. I mean, it's sort of Uncle Ben, being killed in Spider-Man. Stud was being sort of selfish in his, not using his powers only to help people. And so, he kind of pays the price, and he just feels absolutely shitty about it. And Astro dies, and Stud is just like so sorry. And then he's holding the Bloodblade, and he says, "God damn you, Gary." And what we learn then in the next page, which is sort of like this encapsulation of the origin of the Bloodblade, which again, I love how Jed realized this scene of like the
this
panels
awesome.
are the Bloodblade pieces. So you see basically, here's this moment, a flashback, Stud and Gary in better days for Gary. Stud's like, "Oh, you would be a hero like me. Well, can you wield a blade?" And sort of, the idea that a hero is going to have this weapon. But Gary is a little weak person. And so Stud's like, "Come on, lift the blade." And so Gary musters all of his strength, and he's able to lift the blade, but he cuts himself right through his face and is killed. And his mother, Strobecca, who becomes Witchtress, is obviously devastated and freaked out, and she curses the blade, and you can see the curse there. "You mock the son for whom I grieve, so the life you've taken shall be yours to lead." If ever, I forget exactly all the details, but he needs to basically feed the blade with blood, because Witchtress just does not want him to be in civilized polite society. Basically, he's like, you go slay monsters all the time. You think you're such a hero. And then so the next morning comes, and Stud is devastated and holding Astro's dead body, and he sees the sun rising, or Omega Alpha, the black hole sun, and he's just like, yes, a reminder, another day has come, and I need to be better, and I need to I hope the rest of my days can be spent more as hero than fool. But then suddenly he hears another voice in the room, and he's not sure, and you can see in Stud's eye they're sort of evoking the Omega Alpha, that maybe something mystical has just transpired. And so suddenly Stud realizes that there's this guy in the room that he thought he was alone in, and it's this spiky pig man who actually was in the bar with Stud the night before. But then at this moment, the spiky pig man is like, "How did you get here?" I like, "What?" And Stud's like, "What do you mean? How did I get here? I've been here." And it turns out, and he's like, so what? And the pig guy is like, I don't know you. I didn't spend time with you last night. I got in late and went straight to bed. And so eventually Stud sort of pieces it together that there's been this time reset that now today he is in is actually the yesterday that ended in Astro's death. And so now he realizes that it's a gift from Omega Alpha.
So is it something that spontaneously happened, or is it something that regularly happens?
Well, as the sun eats, as the black hole eats the sun, it belches out these gravity waves, which is a science fact. And so, as what this is an example of double time, is what it's known as in Ouroboros, and it's indicating that the sort of destruction of the sun is in a later stage, and so the cosmic serpent loop will be bursting out of the sun, out of the black hole soon, and when that happens, the entire universe resets. And so essentially what Stud is trying to do, when the universe resets, whoever is sort of in power at that time, whether it's good or bad, they set the tone, for the next universe.
Okay, I got
when the universe is reborn. So Stud, it seems crazy that he's just out there killing bad guys or monsters, but essentially what he's trying to do is sort of wipe the slate clean so that only good people are left, and so that will guarantee that the next world is a good world. It's a little weird, it's a little nuts, but it's also maybe not so different from how a lot of organized religions sort of work. But yeah, so then we see on the next page that it's indeed Astro's ship is shooting out of the black hole, and it is arriving. So it's, in a sense, we're returning to the first panel, or shortly before the first panel of the book, of the issue. And so Stud is like, oh my God, I got a second chance to save Astro. I shan't fail you twice. And he's jumping out. Dillo's ready to rock. Next issue, double time. And and then we just set off on kind of a non-stop adventure. And so that was, the first issue. Technically, again, it was 5 issues total. So this is the first trade issue, which is issues 1 and 2. So then we jump into a little backstory on Witchtress 2, because again, what I want to do, it's kind of in that vein of violence doesn't really benefit anyone. It's the idea that even good and bad is completely subjective. So Witchtress, even if some people consider her a bad guy or bad person or villain, she has her own motivations, and she has her own things that are very important to her. Gary, of course, and Stud was accidentally involved with the death of Gary, but you can understand why she would be upset by that. So I kind of I try to show both sides, because I think we live in an exceptionally morally complex world, and to try to write anyone as good or bad is it's a stretch. We all have our human motivations, and we all have our better instincts, and we have our little devils on our shoulders whispering bad ideas to us. And so then the whole story is kind of wrestling with moral complexity and gray areas, and so it's he's a hero, but he does bad stuff too. He makes bad decisions, and ultimately, you see Stud actually struggling with the bigger concepts. He wants to be a good person, and he wants to be a hero, but he doesn't necessarily always want to be a hero. He doesn't want to be a bad guy, but sometimes he just wants to hang out and drink beer and just kind of relax. But if you're the most powerful person on the planet, you kind of have obligations. So he wrestles with sort of how to apply his strength. And throughout the story, you learn that he's sort of been recruited by the king of the planet, to be sort of used as the champion. But you also learn that the king maybe, has his own agenda, and it's all very shaded and hopefully, complex and enjoyable.
No, I think it's complex. I really like how intricate the story is as well, and I really appreciate you breaking down what was technically issue 1. It was just such a phenomenal ride. We have a lot of compliments in chat too. Elena over on YouTube saying nothing wrong with a little bit of sweet, sweet love. So real quick with oops, 1 second. Let me go ahead and get back here. There we go. All right. Now, with this being the last night of your pre-order, what would you like to say to everybody in chat right now that is watching that's kind of on the fence about pre-ordering this? What would you like to say to them directly to kind of get them to push over that edge?
Sure. Well, I would say that this really is a really fun, complex comic, and if you like that sort of stuff, if you like, not totally black and white adventure, but this has so much adventure. It really is. It's like a seven layer burrito of just sci-fi and fantasy and comedy and adventure and sex and gender fluidity and toxic masculinity, and it's really taking on a lot of concepts that I think the comic community is ready to embrace and excited about. I think this, in a lot of ways, is a very different comic than what's out there. I read a lot of comics. I feel like a lot of comics, you read 22 pages and you left wanting more, in the sense that there's a lot of talking heads, and there's talking heads instead. I'm not going to claim to not have talking, but I always try to layer stuff. So if someone is talking, is saying something, they're saying it while action is going on or while there's a flashback, and you get just really really rich panels. Jed is phenomenal.
Yeah, his paneling was remarkable.
Yes. And just really layered and detailed, and it sometimes, I think, annoyed him in a good-natured way that I just had. In the second issue, there's panels that have about 15 characters in them, and I think that was a lot for Jed to do, but he did it, and he did it phenomenally. So if you love beautiful art, if you love big, bold adventure, and if you love, this does have a gay central romance, and it is what I think should be explored and celebrated. And Stud is ultimately about love, the power of love being more powerful than fear or hatred, and
that's awesome.
So we just want to share love, but also give you monsters and action and adventure. So yeah, you get a whole bunch of stuff when you get Stud.
And real quick before we completely wrap up, for anyone that's watching that is looking to create their own kind of book or their adventure, but they're struggling to get their idea off of the ground, what type of advice would you like to give them to kind of help them push through that type of barrier?
Sure. Well, yeah, you just got to keep writing. You read a lot, I think, to get inspiration, and then you write a lot to refine your craft. And I would find, I found this workshop online, but if you just find friends that also like to write, it really is helpful to have people to sort of hold you accountable, in the sense that they're waiting for you to write something.
Yeah.
And they're giving you feedback on it, and hopefully you're giving them feedback on your stuff. And I think the comic book community is very vibrant, and people have great ideas and stories to tell. And if you want to create a comic, just create it. I know it's not that simple, but it also kind of is that simple.
Yeah, you just gotta
set
go for
aside
it.
the time. Yeah, set aside the time to do it. Set aside an hour a day, night, whatever you feel that you have time to do it, and just you just keep chipping away at it. And the more you write, the better you write. And the more you read, the better you write. So read a lot, write a lot, and make some friends who are also creators, and it just keeps you motivated.
No, that is some awesome wisdom. I really appreciate it. And last but not least, where are we going to see you next after Stud and the Bloodblade?
Well, I'm working on a pitch right now with a great artist, Oscar Romero. It's early stages, but I've been loving what he's been doing so far, doing sketches and early layouts. And yeah, it's kind of like Ancient Aliens meets Indiana Jones meets Doctor Strange.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty, again, I just jam shit together and hope it works out. But so yeah, that's a bit on the horizon, but I think it's going to be really cool.
No, that is really cool. Well, Perry, I really appreciate you stopping by, not only giving us an idea of what to expect with this pre-order tonight, but also a more exclusive, like, in-depth look at Stud in the Bloodblade issue #1. That was a blast. I had a good time, like learning how your creative mind worked, and just kind of hearing you break things down and why things happened the way they did. For everyone watching, this is the last of our indie comic interviews. This is my third one today. We did a triple header, and we are finishing strong. So with that being said, we are going to be wrapping it up. Perry, once again, thank you for stopping by tonight. Guys, that pre-order link is in the description. Be sure to check it out because you only have until tonight to get it. Now, with that being said, we are going to be wrapping it up. Hope you guys all have a fantastic Wednesday, but most importantly, keep it geekly.